Thanks everyone for joining this afternoon. I'm Spencer Brignac with the International Franchise Association. We have a great session in store for you today. I just want to go over a few things before we begin. One, this webinar will be recorded. It will be available at community.franchise.org later today. And if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please go to the question box and we will address those at the end of this session around 2:45 or so. Today's topic is how to maximize your Franchise Expo marketing and sales efforts. And before we begin, we want to thank our longtime partner and sponsor of this webinar, MFV Expositions. They'll be hosting the International Franchise Expo in New York City from June 2nd through the 4th in the Javits Center. All IFA franchisor members receive a 7% discount on their booths whenever they exhibit there. Exhibitors will also have the ability to send out comped admissions, which is a great way to invite your prospects to the booth. MFV also has social media assets and other marketing items like specialized promo codes that are available to exhibitors. And don't forget to take advantage of IFA CFE sessions and other franchisor educational programming throughout the expo. Here to walk us through their sales and marketing strategies for expos in general are Ron Bender, the Director of Franchise Relations for Threshold Brands, Trey Doster, Director of Franchise Sales at Zaxby's Franchising, and Tim McCarthy, the Senior Vice President of Franchise Development at Rosati's Pizza. Thank you all for taking time today to talk with us. And Ron, I'm going to send it over to you to start this off.
Thank you very much, Spencer. Thanks to IFA and to MFV Expositions for sponsoring and facilitating this great opportunity. Our job today is, of course, to assist any exhibitors to do a better job and get better results from trade shows and franchise expos and so forth. So first off, let me say I'd love to find out what your thoughts are on why trade shows might be a good lead generator and why you continue to attend and exhibit at them. Trey, would you start us off?
Well, I probably can say that my wife tells me that she can't miss me until I leave. So I stay on the road quite a bit. We do 18 franchising events a year and have a lot of fun doing it. But it's a great way to meet, prospective franchisees that may not have heard of your brand, but also a way to reconnect with prospective franchisees that have reached out to you. That's a geographic area to kind of reconnect.
Outstanding, outstanding. I certainly agree there. And how about you, Tim? What's your rationale?
First, I have a message.
All right.
Arizona. Happy Cinco de Mayo. So trade shows have been great for Rosati's, and for several reasons. I think it allows us to accelerate the development process, create a sense of urgency. Those leads convert at a much higher rate than our internet leads. And we've seen interesting things happen at trade shows. For instance, the first store that I ever awarded in Georgia took place about 5 years ago. I met the gentleman at a trade show, at a franchise show in Del Mar, California, and he eventually became the first Rosati's location in the state of Georgia, which is something you don't really anticipate. But since then, I've had several of those types of situations take place where I met someone in one market, but then eventually they opened in a market nowhere near where the show was held. So that trade shows provide you with a lot of options, and I think that store in Georgia, for instance, right now is top 5 in the chain for Rosati's. So wow. Anything can happen, and it won't happen if you're not out there.
I agree perfectly. I love trade shows. I love to see my prospects. I love to read their body language, get a better feel for who they are in person. I think that's much more valuable. And those of you who know me know that I have, we'll call it a trade show personality, which means I'm loud and I like to talk and I like to meet people, right? Everybody knows that. But before we go on, let's each give a little bit of information about who we are and why we're here on this great presentation. And I'll start since I have the microphone. I've been in franchising for just over 20 years. I've known both Tim and Trey and of course IFE and IFA and MFV Expositions and a whole bunch of franchise friends for many, many years. We exhibit together a lot. We've grown close over the years. This is such a great community for personal relationships. And I'm a huge fan of trade shows. I was speaking at a trade show for, one of the little interviews where they walk around the trade show and they say, what do you think? How's it going? And all that. And I reflected for a moment and I said, I believe I've awarded a franchise after absolutely every single franchise expo I've ever done. And I've been doing expos since they were back in DC so many years ago. I think I may have broken that string here in the last year. But anyway, I love them. I love to be out there. I love the people in the franchise industry. I love to be able to give back. I love to be involved in the Vet Fran program and to promote the IFA and the rest of our franchise industry specials. So, Tim, what's up with you, and how did we get to have you here?
Thanks, Ron. So I've been involved in franchise development for 24 years. Worked for some great brands. I started out with UPS Store. Spent a lot of time with Cold Stone Creamery, Rebath, and I've been with Rosati's for the last 10.5 years. We've built Rosati's on the trade show circuit over the past 10 years. We've tripled the size of the company. We've had a lot of success with the trade shows. I probably do 50. I'm up in trade Doster numbers, 15 to 17 shows a year. And I got to tell you, it's hard work. If you do it right, and you're enthusiastic with every single person you speak with, you're talking at eye level, you're standing, you're exhausted after a good day at a show. And you should be, and that's the way you need to handle it. You need to go in knowing that it's going to be a tough day, and you need to be prepared, and it's hard work. Did I say it was hard work? It's hard work.
Yeah, I certainly agree. How about you, Trey?
Yeah, so for us, we've been with Zaxby's for 15 years, and so this is the only franchising that I've ever known. And so, we're brand ambassadors for Zaxby's, and it's an honor and a pleasure to do that. And so, in a lot of areas where we actually will go to these shows, there's not a lot of brand awareness. So it's our opportunity to kind of share with someone that hasn't heard of Zaxby's what the Zaxby's opportunity is. We might not have had that opportunity had we not been there in person. And I'd agree with Tim's assessment. Nothing beats a face-to-face, interaction. And Ron, you kind of hit it too. The body language that you have with someone, we feel like as many touch points as we can have with a prospective franchisee, it's the dating, it's the courting process. And so if we have phone calls with them before a franchising event, and this is what's been successful for us, is we then invite them to these franchising events that are in a geographic area that it makes sense for them to come and visit us. And it's just another opportunity for us to kind of see if they'd be a good fit for our brand and we're a good fit for them. And, it's a lot of fun. So, the ability to share, kind of what we do, what works, along with other franchisors, I've found that, the franchising family that we kind of travel with, we're really an open book. I mean, we kind of share what works, what doesn't, and, we want to see each other win. So happy to help my fellow franchising friends.
Outstanding. I definitely agree. I believe that we have a responsibility to promote franchising as an entire business model and to help anybody who is in the industry so that the industry seems much more professional, much more impactful for our potential candidates. And I've got a tip. I know you guys, I'm sure, have tips as well, but here I'm going to throw one out early in the presentation. I believe you have to coach your people to use their knowledge and their life experience to quickly find common interests with their candidates, the folks who are walking by attending this exhibit. And it could be as simple as talking about where they live, or sports, or regional food, or tourist destinations. Who knows what it is? Who cares what it is? But you spur some very quick connection, and then you can ask the important questions. And those questions might be something like, why is now the time for you to open a business? You don't ask, why are you here at the show? That's a little too lame. Tim, Trey, you got any quick tips for our listeners?
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, Ron. As I walk through the shows, if I'm going to grab some coffee, and I try to listen to other brands and how they're pitching, and I'm always trying to improve what I'm doing. But what I think is important is, you know, there's people that are hovering around your booth. You may be talking to one group, but there are others listening. And, you know, mix it up. I mean, don't say the same exact thing to every single person. Like, are you familiar with Rosati's? Are you familiar with Rosati's? And, you know, you've got to get more personal, like Ron shared with you. You've got to take an interest, and you've got to have some knowledge. You've got to collect some knowledge. A little secret sauce that I have that I'll share a little later, how I prep for a show. But I think you got to get personal. You got to hit the right notes with certain individuals, and just to hold their attention. And you know, and they're looking to see if you and your brand are a good fit for them, and you want to try and establish that.
Excellent. Trey, what you think?
You know, I think to be able to be engaging without being pushy. So, you know, we've all been to franchising events where you've seen someone who's a little too aggressive, right? So you're trying to share what your opportunity is, but at the same time, you're not trying to push someone away at the same time. So I think there's a delicate balance between sharing information, you know, trying to probe a little bit and find out why they're there, and you know, if the brand that you're representing is a good fit for them. Because quite honestly, a lot of people that we meet with probably aren't the franchisee that we're looking for today. It might be down the road, maybe when their net worth is maybe a little higher, if it's someone that's just coming out of college, or maybe they have a connection. So it's just, you know, we feel like it's an opportunity for us to kind of explore why they're there, but also at the same time, maybe help educate them, right? So a lot of times we'll have someone that will stop by the booth, and you know, we're kind of sharing what Zaxby's is, and we'll say, you know, do you know what a franchise disclosure document is? Do you know that the Federal Trade Commission requires all of us to kind of lay our information out in the same format? So, you know, anyone that you have in this room, you should be able to ask for the franchise disclosure document. So not only just, you know, you're trying to promote your brand, but kind of best practices in franchising, because again, that person may not be a franchisee for you, but they may actually be a consumer. So you're kind of wearing two hats at, you know, for your role there at that franchise show.
Right,
Right,
as you said,
that's a
brand
great
ambassador.
approach. Great approach. I call that franchising 101.
You know, interestingly enough, most of the franchise expos do have a course available for attendees called Franchising 101, and we on the show floor are maybe Franchising 102 in many cases. But no, that's terrific. I think we're all on the same page here. Well, we know the trade show promoters, they do a great job of marketing, right? They do a lot of things to bring attendees in. Do you guys do anything on your own before a show to market, to bring additional people in? I think Trey mentioned something about reaching out to candidates in the region if it makes sense for them to come in. Can you expand on that a little, Trey, and tell us anything else that you might do?
Yeah, so for us before a show, we're taking the marketing materials that event has shared, and then we're promoting it through social. But then we're also taking the database that we have in our CRM, going back maybe, you know, 2 or 3 years. And you know, Tim touched on this earlier about this person that was in California winds up doing a store in Georgia. I mean, you just never know. It's timing, right? So
Right.
You may have talked to them 3 years ago, and the timing is right, or maybe they moved geographically, whatever. But that email kind of carries with them. So we'll send that out and do a campaign. We try very hard not to just blow people up. So we kind of send a pre-campaign and then a post-campaign. Hey, if we missed you, that sort of thing. But, you know, these shows that we're attending today do a fantastic job. MFV does geofencing around the events. So they're paying big dollars, and their partnership with IFA, I think, brings a lot of credibility and education to the table. So, you know, we feel like we're adding to what they're already doing and kind of supplementing that to try to get people in the door.
Excellent. How about you, Tim?
Well, yeah, and so most of the promoters, especially MFV, they'll provide you with a customized, branded invitation to send out to, you know, your prospects. What we do is we go back prior to every show, create a spreadsheet for leads from that area for the previous year, and then we go back. We also, in our CRM, identify those that have been at prior trade shows as well in that market. So we hit both those lists with specific customized invitations to the show. Again, all the promoters out there will provide you that. All you have to do is ask for it. And then we track those. You know, we want to see what kind of bounce back we get, see how effective we are. And, we find that, trade show leads convert at a much higher rate. So, there's a lot to that. And that's a very valuable source for all of us. And the promoters make it easy for us.
Outstanding. Now, I agree with both of you, and I think I've heard over the years franchisors have said, I don't want to bring my existing candidates into the show for fear that they'll talk to another brand and maybe buy that one instead of mine. How do you respond to that thought? Be nice.
I think
I don't know. Maybe it's a little short-sighted. We're all ambassadors for franchising in general. The more, the merrier. I've often told prospects, even if they choose another brand, that they can contact me and I'll help them with questions that they may have. I'm always looking out for the goodwill and the good of franchising in general. It benefits us all.
Yeah, we will invite our franchisees. There's some conferences out there like multi-unit, right? So there's a lot of franchisees that have multiple concepts under their umbrella, and so we bring our franchisees there because there's great sessions for them to attend. But we're in a geographic area like some of the shows that MFV puts on. Our franchisees will sometimes just come out just to say hello to us, and if they happen to be in the booth, there's certain things that we can't share as a franchisor, as everybody knows. And so it's our opportunity to say, hey, we're going to step away. You guys can have a conversation and, certainly feel free to ask anything you want. However, this is one person's, opinion of the brand. We'd love to get you connected with lots of people in the brand. That way you have a very kind of a broad perspective of what it's like to be a franchisee of Zaxby's.
I love that. And I agree with you, Trey. I actually invite franchisees. If I'm in a market area where we've got units, I invite franchisees to attend, first of all, because I'd love for them to learn more about franchising, exactly as you said. But also, having a franchisee in the booth, I think, is one of the most effective, I don't want to call it a sales technique. I think it's one of the most impactful things that you can do, because speaking to us as franchise development professionals, that's one thing. But speaking to somebody who's walking the walk, who made the decision, the same decision that these attendees are thinking about, I think that's great. I absolutely do not expect them to shill for me. I want them to hang out in the booth at times, but I want them to enjoy the show and learn and make other connections as well. But I think that's a terrific idea. Plus, when franchisees come to the show, they get excited and they get more engaged, and we build a relationship with those franchisees, which is very valuable when there's validation and they can let us know, hey, I talked to this guy in this interest area, and here's what I think about him. That's just great information to have from any franchisee. So when you're designing your booth, I know, we've done a lot of shows, and booth displays and booth designs have changed, and there's always, you tweak things every single time, I bet. But when you prep for the booth for a show, what do you do? What's the most important factor in building out that booth and designing that booth, and how do you make sure that you're making the right choices when you do make changes?
I'll take that. Well, I think you definitely want to be consistent with all your material. I think video is great. We've been running loops of our new TikTok videos to stay current with the TikTok crowd. So that's been real effective for me, running that on a loop and a small screen in the booth. And one of my favorite things are one-sheeters, okay? You keep it simple, you stay on topic, and you keep the one-sheeter to just one topic. For instance, this is a one-sheeter that I give out at the shows. And this is the history of Rosati's. This dates back all the way to 1906, when the first Rosati's family member opened a restaurant in the city of Chicago. So this is all about the history of the brand. This is one of my favorite pieces to share. I also have a one-sheeter with regard to our financing program, our SBA program. And, keep it simple, but, bullet points, the important stuff that they need to see right away, that you want to communicate in a short amount of time. So I like the one-sheeters. I like the video. We've been, as far as giveaways, we've been giving away Rosati's masks for the past year, just to stay current with the world, and that they've been popular. But you know, I try to keep the giveaways at a minimum, but try to give away something that's relevant. But you know, the backdrop, you know, huge branding opportunity there as well, but keep it consistent with everything else that you're displaying.
Cool. How about you, Trey?
Tim brings up some great points, and I think if you're really listening to your prospective franchisees that are coming by, they're asking the same questions over and over. You should be prepared, right? So if you can kind of build those answers into what you have in your booth, will help kind of, you know, expedite that conversation, but you can kind of get back to them as a people. So, you know, Tim's got his one pager, we do as well. So this is, you know, something we hand out, has a little history where we are, geographic footprint of where the brand is. So if it's a new area, they may be surprised to hear that there's 917 locations of Zaxby's. But you know, some of the things they want to know too is like, what are the fees? And so we know they're going to talk to quite a few people in that hall, and they're probably not going to remember all the things we're going to share with them. So it's a way of giving them a cheat sheet to take with them. And something we've incorporated as well is, you want to make it as easy as you can for that prospective franchisee to get back in touch with you. So if there's a QR code that they can scan, a simple, you know, little database for them to fill out, if it's with an iPad or something like that, or a tablet. And I know that, you know, MFV has offered the scanners. And so that's a great way of actually scanning a badge. And so you can get their information. So it's great to meet them, but you need to have that follow up afterwards. And a lot of these shows, people aren't walking around with a business card. So it's important for you to be able to kind of capture that information.
Yeah, outstanding, outstanding. I agree. I used to do a lot of one-sheeters, but now it's, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a branded, logoed flash drive. So on this flash drive, since Threshold Brands has 8 different franchise brands in the home services space, I've got the e-brochure for every one of the brands right here. I've got contact information. I've got a one-sheeter on the process, and I call it the franchise research process, so that the candidates understand, here's the steps. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to get you an FDD and a territory option, and then we're going to do validate anyway. But this is the kind of thing that people are going to pick up. In many cases, they'll pick it up even if they're not interested, because hey, it's a flash drive. And you know what, if they're going to take this home and delete my stuff and use it and promote my company name, that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I'll tell you, the other thing that I do is I try to ensure that the booth matches not only all the collateral, as Tim said, but it matches the brand culture. And that, you know, when you said telling the Rosati story from way back in 1906, before you even worked for Rosati's, I think that was just a couple of years before, right?
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic, because the brand story is a huge part of the culture of the brand. But I think you have to absolutely show the brand culture. You know, when I'm exhibiting men in kilts, I'm going to be drinking my diet soda out of a kilted koozie, and I'm going to wear a kilt, and I'm going to have, you know, the goofy clothing. You guys who know me know that I absolutely am not going to wear clothing that makes me look like just any other person at the show, right? I want to stand out.
I'd agree with that.
Things that you too, Tim. I know you know me well. But I'm a big fan of setting the booth up to be open and inviting. I do not like having a table between attendee and exhibitor. I think that's us against them, me against your wallet kind of a feeling. I don't like that. I like to set the tables at angles, put the pop-ups behind them at angles, kind of make it open and inviting. I love getting a corner booth so I can actually take the side panel down and let people just kind of walk in from 2 sides at least. Those are the things that I do I don't even keep chairs in the booth, because I don't want my staff members and I don't want my candidates to sit down. Now, you know, in some brands, I know you guys do more consultative selling. When you've got a higher investment, when you've got to get more information, perhaps you need chairs or stools. I know Zaxby's loves stools to get that consultative feeling. But what do you guys think about that?
I think you brought up a great point. I think we need to talk about this aside from the booth, but the floor plan of the show. I mean, where you're strategically located, and how you present based on that location. And you know, Rosati's, we always like to be up near the entrance. We focus our display on a location within the floor plan that'll be up front, that'll grab some attention. On the larger shows, we also put a small conference table within the booth. So I think floor plan is really important. You need to understand where you're at and you know how you need to work that show and that booth based on that floor plan.
Cool. Trey, any input here?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I do think that there's a lot of great looking booths out there from different franchisors, and most of us are updating that as our concept is changing. You know, if you've got a new building, in fact, on this one here, you know, we've got a red farmhouse. We've actually changed that to a white farmhouse. So it actually lights up really well at night. And so all of our materials has been changed, and we've got a new booth that reflects that. You know, and I would say too, for kind of the first time franchisors that are starting to exhibit, or if you're with a brand that's been doing this for a while, but you're new to franchising, the booth that you pick too, I do think there's a diminishing return on like how elaborate your booth is. I don't know that you're going to sell any more franchises, right? If you've got some huge castle that you build and you've required, you know, a union team to come in and build it. A lot of franchisors are going to have, you know, probably a pop-up booth that has some LED lights, the case that it goes into. You can kind of double it as a stand to put a television on, so you can be really nimble with what you're putting and not have to spend a ton of money to look really good.
I agree.
No, I definitely agree.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm especially since I don't put chairs in the booth, I'm a fan of that double layer of padding, because I think that, you know, you're treating your staff better if they're going to be standing there all day, but I think it's also more welcoming for franchise candidates. Sometimes people will come into the booth and they go, oh yeah, this is nice. And you know what? That's an icebreaker. I'll be happy to take that. A couple of other points. If you're an IFA member, if you're a vet Fran participant, if you're a diversity Fran participant, if you've got any special programs that you offer, you got to put signs up. You got to make sure that that's promoted, and you've got to be able to tell that story to the attendees about what benefits that they might get from that. And let's talk about giveaways. I think Tim mentioned earlier that he likes to keep giveaways kind of, you know, concise, not give away the world like, you know, just me with flash drives. But how do you feel about using a giveaway to break the ice? You know, whether it's a baseball cap or a logoed pen or a shopping bag, or, you know, I've even done a bowl of candy, you know, and I'll approach a family with kids and I'll say, hey, you know, I've got a ton of candy. If I can't give all this away, I have to eat it all. So do you mind if I offer your children a piece of candy or something like that? You know, especially since there's shows that are, you know, going to attract a family clientele. Or you might do product samples. You know, that's another challenge. But what do you think about giveaways and breaking the ice?
Well, I think any way you can break the ice is a you know, a good thing. It's a great thing.
Right.
Yeah, I shy away from sampling at the shows. I did it once, and my booth looked like Wrigley Field after a playoff game within 15 minutes of the pizza being gone. So,
Right.
you know, we're there to sell franchises, and you know, you lose sight of that when all you're doing is giving away samples and pizza and food. So, yeah, I stay away from that these days. But you know, I gave it a try. I learned my lesson.
How about you, Trey?
I think it works for some brands. I think we probably all know some franchisors out there that routinely have food at their booth. Jersey Mike's is a good example of that. I mean, I think everybody loves that when they bring food in, you know, we want to try to be respectful that that product is for the you know, for the people that are attending, but they're very generous to share that with their franchising friends as well. But you know, I do think that, you know, if someone is stopping by your booth, what's the intention? If it's just to grab a giveaway and they're moving on, you may not feel like there's a whole lot of value in that. But to your point, you know, it's branded. They're going to probably use it at some other point. So I think there could be some value in there. But, you know, it can get very expensive, especially if it's a show that's been well promoted. You know, I know that Tim is a big proponent of handing out Rosati branded bags. And so you see almost everyone, you know, toting one of those bags. And so it works really well for him in that kind of that niche. And so, yeah, it could work.
Well, I agree with you, especially Tim. I think watching people try to sample food product is just, that's a whole other ball game. You know, you tend to then attract people, A, just to get that sample, and B, people who are just passionate about the actual product as opposed to passionate about the business opportunity, which, you know, that's the thing. But I think there's a lot of companies out there that might be able to give out product samples that aren't food. You know, there was a terrific CBD company that exhibited at the IFE in September, this past September, and not only did the attendees get those samples, but I got a couple after having a conversation with the folks behind the booth. Turns out they live 15 minutes from me. They're headquartered in Palmetto, Florida. And my happy, almost 14-year-old huge Labrador now gets SunMed CBD, thanks to your CBD store. But those are, you know, not only are you doing double duty to attract that attention and get people familiar with the product, but you're also generating potential future customers, even if they're not going to buy a franchise. Heck, you're supporting your own units and building brand awareness. I love that idea. Now, if it's someone's first time exhibiting, what do you recommend that they do? What should they do to start and become a great exhibitor as quickly as possible?
I know what Tim's going to say. Make sure that you wear branded. Make sure you wear a branded button down. He's caught me before where I actually had, you know, there we go. And so, you
Like
know,
this?
there we go.
Like that.
So I think, you know, anything that you can do that's kind of promoting your brand, that would be, you know, a great step. Just being engaging. And then I would think, depending on the franchising event that you're going to, if it's restaurant finance, you're probably going to have more bankers and people are probably going to be dressing a little more formal there, right? So a little more business casual, where you might be able to be even more casual in some of the like weekend shows. And you don't want to feel like you're overdressed versus the person that you may be having a conversation with. But I'd also kind of share too that don't give up on a venue. There's been some times where, you know, our friends at MFV, national events, IFA, I mean, they've had a great venue, but you never know what's going to cause a turnout to not be as great as it could have been. It could be weather, or there might have been something else that was happening in that downtown area that just, you know, for whatever reason, it wasn't a great show the year before, but this year, you know, they hit it out of the park, you know, and these shows, they spend a tremendous amount of time, money, effort, and marketing to bring people in the door. And if we're not happy as exhibitors, they're absolutely listening to the feedback. So, you know, they'll want us to actually exhibit with them again.
Oh, I definitely agree. How about you, Tim? What do you think?
Well, I think it's time to share some secret sauce. As you can see, I'm sitting in the Rosati's Command Center here. I have several maps behind me. One of them is a Nielsen Dma Map, okay? So DMA is a designated marketing area. Probably most people know that, but within the DMA, there are several MSAs. So those are metropolitan statistical areas. So from the last
census,
yeah, I went in and I made a MSA sheet for every state, all 50 states. So here's one for South Carolina. Say I'm doing a show in South Carolina. I have every metropolitan statistical area listed here with a population of about 50,000 people. So when I go into that show in that market, and I have no locations there, first of all, I can talk knowledgeably about the demographics, the MSAs, the population, medium household incomes, and poverty rates. So that's how I start to create a sense of urgency. Listen, you know, if you were in the Columbia MSA, you've got the opportunity to do multiple Rosati's units, and you'd be the first one in. You'd be the first one in on the state. So doing your homework, knowing the MSAs, the DMAs, knowing the statistics, and it doesn't hurt to make a copy of whatever state you're doing and taking it with you, a little cheat sheet. But I have all 50 states in this binder. And not only do I use it to prepare for shows, but every time I'm on the phone with somebody that it's a new prospect, I just open up to where they're at and start talking knowledgeably about their market, and I get their attention right away. So it's worth the effort. Go to the government census site, pull this data. It's a lot of work, make a sheet for each state, but it really pays off in the long run. Little Rosati's secret sauce for there.
Dude, I'm stealing that. I mean, thank you, Tim, for sharing that with us. I think when I talk to people, and I'm a big promoter of franchise expos, I tell people that they should do industry trade shows and do franchise expos. I love them. And when I'm talking to somebody about potentially becoming an exhibitor at these shows, I tell them that energy is critical, positive attitude is critical, preparation is critical. You know, you've got to coach your team, and they need to have that elevator pitch, that 30 to 45-second elevator pitch. They need to have it down pat, and it needs to express what the opportunity is and what differentiates this opportunity from others. And if you've got that, you know, you've got a great shot at making it work. I think I also would tell people that take notes of what you talk about with these people, because you're going to learn things that are going to be very valuable for your follow-up, right? You're going to know maybe what their hot buttons are. Maybe you're going to even find out their dominant buying motive. Maybe you're going to learn who else might be involved or what specific market is important to them. And those are things that help you continue the connection and continue the conversation and engage them better. Here's a question. How about when it's a veteran exhibitor? You know, we've all seen folks who we've seen for years and years, but they don't look like they've still got the same motivation or energy. Any tips and tricks for them to kind of get re-energized?
I think you have to be excited about your brand. I mean, it's, you know, it's certainly some brands are, you know, maybe they've had a great year last year. They might there might be some things that they're struggling with this year, but I think you need to kind of highlight what is, you know, the kind of the things you want to brag about. If it's your average unit volume, if it's, you know, you've got franchisee validation. I know there's some great companies out there that will do that. FBR will, you know, kind of gauge your franchisee satisfaction. That's another thing that you can brag about at the events. You know, but just, you know, you do need to have some excitement, and you know, you want to kind of show that what you're offering is different than what else is on the floor there that day. So, and one thing, you know, Tim's talking about kind of sharing one of his secret sauce. I'd say for all of us that have been doing this for a little while, you can sometimes get a read of who's coming up to the booth, right? So if it doesn't look like, you know, maybe they are together as a couple, you know, you may say, you know, hey, do these people work together, right? So, and if it looks like it may be that they may be work colleagues, they may be trying to sell you something versus it the other way around. And so versus getting into a 30-minute pitch about what your brand is and how awesome it is, it's important to kind of stop a little bit in and say, hey, you know, what brings you to the show? What's keeping you busy day to day? Why are you interested in Zaxby's? Why are you interested in Rosati's? And so you may find out you've got someone that's ready to sell you, you know, some sort of facility cleaning equipment, and they're really not interested in the franchise.
So how do you handle that? I know Tim, you're a past expert at handling that. What do you do?
Well, so here's what I would share with you with regard to a brand that's built out, saturated in many markets, you know, pulled away from the shows. I think by going to the shows as a brand, you're supporting the existing franchisees in that market. Even though it may be built out, you're showing a commitment to them to still push the brand forward. And a lot of them may be in positions where they want to transfer their locations. And you're making it easier for them to get new blood in the system by going back to those markets and creating some buzz and hype with regard to your brand. It's helping the existing franchise community. And, you know, that's a brand that's looking out for everybody.
No, I certainly agree with that. I know when you're at a show, you're absolutely going to have vendors come by, right? You're going to have students come by who are doing research for school. You're going to have all sorts of engagement that isn't necessarily, hi, I'm ready to buy a franchise. I love to find out, you know, if it's a student doing research, oh my gosh, I want to get back to them after the show and I want to help them. I think that's just part of giving back to the community. If it's a vendor, you know, certainly I am not a decision maker on just about anything a vendor might want to sell to my company. I'm certainly not the guy they'd want to pitch because I don't get to say yes. But I'm happy to take a business card and pass it along to the person who might be appropriate. I don't prefer giving contact information for my staff members to these vendors, because I don't want my guys to be bothered by folks that they just really have no interest in working with. And I think I want to ask vendors and suppliers to be cognizant that we are spending a lot of money and investing a lot of time and energy to exhibit at these shows. And again, we're not decision makers in almost anything that they could be pitching. So please don't take us away from potential candidates. Feel free to step up, give us a business card, ask us to follow up after the show, and then go to the next booth. I have no problem with that. And of course, there's a lot of suppliers who exhibit at the show, and when there's spare downtime, they come by and they chat. I love that, because you know what, they're supporting the industry, and I want to support them. So I think that's a great idea. Let's do a follow-up real quick. We've only got a few more minutes before a question and answer. So how do you prepare for follow-up? Should you do that now, or should you wait till the evening after the show? All right, that's a softball. Come on, Trey, hit it out of the park.
Well, so our information that so if someone inquires with us, and hopefully we're getting them to fill out that information at the booth, if they scan the QR code, and so they can fill that out, they're getting the a development map and our franchise disclosure document instantly. So, and the caveat there is they have to be, we're registered in that state. So if we're not, they're not going to receive it, but they will receive an email response that says, currently we're filing in your state. As soon as we have that available, we'll be happy to follow back up with you. So, but they're getting something instantly within 48 hours. We're going to have another follow-up, trying to schedule a call. We're just now integrating into our system. I know a lot of franchisors do this already, but the texting ability and scheduling, the calendar app that will integrate into your emails, so that's something that we're doing now. So it just makes it easier. So if we're at a show, if someone wants to give us a cell phone number, we can do that, and then they can actually schedule with us, instantly look at our calendar and put something together there.
Cool. How about you, Tim?
So what I do with show leads is I promise them that they'll hear from me first thing Monday morning. And what I do first thing Monday morning is load all the leads into our CRM, which initiates a 7-letter drip campaign over the next 10 days. And then later in the day, I hit each one of them individually with an email from me. It was great to meet you at the show. If I can remember something personal about our conversation, I'll inject that into my letter, and I'll attach an application. And my goal is to get that application filled out so I can accelerate the development process and get the FDD in their hands as quick as possible.
Wow. Okay. Cool. My concepts are much lower investment, and they're not brick and mortar as yours are. So I'm not interested in throwing an FDD at somebody that quickly. I don't have as sophisticated a candidate, I think, as you guys might. So now it's my turn to show you some secret sauce. I'm going to give you my little tips and tricks of the trade. You guys probably know this is the trade.
Come on.
I'm all in. I'm all in. First of all, I absolutely, each night after the show, I send an email to everyone I met at the show that day, every candidate, and I thank them for meeting me at the show, and I send them an e-brochure, and I invite them to attend the open house or whatever event that I have scheduled after the show. And this is the secret sauce right here. So if I have a franchisee in the market, I'm going to schedule an open house at their location. If it's not a brick and mortar, I'm going to do, or I don't have a franchisee there, I'm going to do a webinar, and I'm going to schedule perhaps 3 webinars that following 4 business days, one in the morning, one in midday, one in the evenings, just so I can keep the engagement level high. So in that follow-up email that they get the night after the show, it gives them an invitation to that with the link to the webinar, if it's a webinar or whatever. But if there's a way that I can get them to engage with me in the next, let's say, 3 business days, and I'm going to stay in the market and I'm going to try to generate that excitement, I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons for my success at Franchise Expos, because you got to realize at these big expos, there might be 300 or 400 or more exhibitors, and they are all hungry just like we are. And they are all hopefully almost as good at follow-up as we 3 are, right? And a franchise candidate is going to be inundated with calls and emails. That's another reason I don't really hand out a lot of business cards at the show, because I think they get lost in the crowd. What I do is I hand out a half sheet of color paper nice colorful paper, and it's got that webinar or that open house information and my contact information. And it's just something that, you know, if it's a neon green or a bright yellow, it might stand out in that bag that Tim has handed them saying Rosati's, right? And I want them to be able to pull that sucker out rather than, you know, go through 100 different things. Okay, so any final thoughts? We've been talking about how to maximize your opportunities and your sales at an expo or trade show. What are your final thoughts, Tim?
Well, thanks, Ron. I think it's always a great opportunity. You always learn new things at any given show. If you pay attention and you look around, you know, you'll see new ideas, you'll see new ways to communicate. And if you're not out there and you're not current, you tend to fall behind. And I like to stay in front. I like to be proactive. I like meeting people. I like to have the opportunity to sell that store in Georgia and Del Mar, California. If you're not there, it's not going to happen, you know. And so get out there and just continue to evolve, grow, and be, you know, assertive with it.
I love it. I love it. Trey, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, you know, I'll probably say that you just can't be lazy, right? Can't just show up for the event and just you hope you're going to have that magical franchisee that walks in. It could happen, right? I mean, these events are spending money and geofencing and bringing people in, but you got to do your own homework. You got to, you know, pre and post campaigns that you're sending. You know, we partnered with a company called Zoracle that does a franchisee, you know, it's a selection or a fit assessment. And so it takes our best franchisees in the system. So now we can actually do Facebook lookalikes, geofence our own candidates around these shows. So we're actually campaigning for those people. So, you know, again, it is a partnership with these franchising events together, and it's a great platform to have these face-to-face meetings that just it works. It works.
I love it. I love it. I got to tell you, my final thought is that I think people are very, very eager to get back out and meet in person. I think it's immensely valuable to us in the franchise industry to be in front of them and to be able to be much more impactful with them. But I will tell you, there are people out there that are still concerned about COVID, right? You guys have heard that there was some virus going around. And I think it's absolutely appropriate for you to have a branded mask, whether it says Rosati's or, you know, your brand, whatever. And I think if you see a masked attendee walk up, I think it's appropriate for you to put that mask on and be respectful of them and their desires. Otherwise, they might not stop at your booth. They might walk to somebody else who is wearing a mask. So I absolutely dearly love being in front of candidates at these expos. And I'm thrilled to be back out there and doing it. Spencer, can you bring us home?
Yes, absolutely, Ron. And thanks, guys, for taking the time to talk and share some of your secret sauces with everyone. We do have a few questions that we got throughout this presentation. So just wanted to ask one of them. What type of franchises work best at trade shows? Are there specific industries, verticals that are maybe better than others?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Good question.
Yes, I'll take that one first. You know, for us, we always kind of just up front, as we're talking with someone, kind of share, we may be one of the more expensive concepts at this show because there's commercial real estate involved, right? So we try to share that information up front and why that is. And so certainly we're not trying to run somewhat off, but what's great about these events is, you know, there's a lower cost entry franchising opportunities that are great investments, all the way up to, you know, some 5,000 and 10,000 square foot facilities, you know, some of these swim schools that are out there. And so, you know, you're just going to need a different candidate coming through the door for each one of these concepts.
Tim, what do you think?
You know, there's opportunities for everybody, especially emerging brands, newer investments. Obviously, you know, the investment level does make a difference. Ours is up there, you know, in some instances where Trey's at. So, but I get surprised. I did a deal at a small regional show where I had a gal walk up to me, flannel shirt and jeans, you know, just inquired about our franchise. The next day she came back and handed me a application with a net worth of over 20 million. And turned out she was a world famous poker tour player. I had no idea who she was. And she purchased a sports bar in Georgia. So, you know, you got to be there. That's all I would say. You know,
Yeah.
there are different investment levels. There's emerging brands. There's opportunities for everybody.
And my thought, Spencer, is I think the higher the investment level, the fewer candidates, qualified candidates that will be walking around just any show. You know, when you're a $5 or $7 million investment for a big hotel chain or a huge automated car wash or something, you know, maybe you have fewer candidates that walk around a show for that. But, you know, if you're in the 750,000 or less range, I think you've got a huge opportunity as long as you can present at a show, as long as you can differentiate at a show, as long as you can make an impact with it.
This question, and it might be for, I think that this was in reference to Tim in mining the census data. It was a question about what that website was that they could go to.
I think it's usgov/census.com. I think easy to find.
Might be .gov.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably
I think
Google search U.S. Census and they'll find it. Probably is one of the first results.
Yeah.
And I think Tim brings up a great point there too. You know, us as salespeople, we have to know what we're selling, right? So if you go to a show and you really don't know how many opportunities your brand can hold in that market, that's not good. You didn't come prepared. So there's lots of analytics tools that are out there. We've used Buxton in the past. We're currently using Tango, and it gives us, you know, an idea of how many Zaxby's we could put in that market. And it also allows us to show what that investment, like we can't share with a franchisee how much they could potentially make in that store, but we could say, hey, you know, these are some markets where it really doesn't make sense to put a Zaxby's there because the return on investment isn't as high as we need it to be.
And we use, I didn't mention this when Tim was talking about his mapping and his census data, but we use an IFA supplier for demographic mapping. We have actually pre-drawn territories in all the markets. So when I go to a show in New York City, I know how many units of each of the different brands I can fit in the boroughs and in Northern Jersey and in Southwestern Connecticut and all that. And I can show people on a map, hey, here's your market area. Here's the one that's right there by your home. And here's 3 adjacent availability, but this one's already taken. And it's very impactful, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys stay after the show for a few days or a week to meet with your prospects again as a follow-up?
I do. I love it.
With me, I try to leave the following day if someone wants to have dinner the night of the last night of the show. I like to save some time available for that if they're, you know, really passionate about getting together right away. So I don't leave until the next day, but I don't host an event after the show.
I think it's important to be flexible, right? So if you meet someone that, you know, you didn't plan on taking someone to dinner that night, but you had someone that you met, you know, it could be a great opportunity to continue that conversation. For us, there's a lot of unknowns that we have to figure out really before going too far with them. So we need to do a Zoracle assessment to find out if they're the right fit as far as in hospitality. So they got to check that box. We do need to verify some funds. So, you know, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time in the courting process unless we really know that it truly is the person we're going after.
The next question is actually for me. The recording is at community.franchise.org. If you're an IFA member, you should have access to that. You can email me afterward if you have trouble getting onto that. Education sessions. Do you guys, there are some education sessions at these expos, you know, do you recommend people that are kind of looking for franchising, maybe to look around at the expo, come by the education session? Do you guys leave your booths at all to go to those?
Oh, let me take this first.
Question.
Let me take this first. Hold on.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a big believer in the educational sessions. I very, very often, almost every expo, I am presenting once or twice. I do the vet fran presentation, or I do the diversity presentation, or sometimes I've done, you know, married couples in franchising. Those are the kinds of things that I think are very valuable for the community. I do not promote solely my own brands. I promote franchising as a whole, and I think that's important for all of us to do. And the only thing I would caution people, I love the idea of going to educational sessions. The only thing I would caution people is that in some cases, some of those sessions are absolutely just sales pitches. So just go in with your eyes open, take some notes, and then verify, right? Go out and verify the information and shop around appropriately.
I think the seminars can be good talking points with your prospects as well. You know, once you've gotten through your conversation, then recommend, hey, you know, while you're here, I recommend that you go to this seminar or that seminar, ones that you know that are very productive and that will help with what you're presenting.
Yeah, I think the seminars are fantastic. There's really a wealth of information that's presented there for the attendees. It may be a little tougher for us as the franchisors to attend those, especially if the show is going on. We've spent a lot of time, money, and energy to be on that show floor. So, you know, unless you have someone to cover you during that time, and I think MFV and IFA have actually done a nice job of kind of doing it before show hours or after, so to make it a little more easy for us to be able to attend those events.
I actually just have Trey watch my booth when I have to get out of the booth, so it works out fine.
I know that there's going to be some CFE sessions the day before during the setup for IFE as well. So there's that option. And then one final question, when is a lead dead? When do you kind of give up on them? You know, how many phone calls, how many emails?
Ron's going to say never.
I say never. I say never as well. You know, you never know. I did deals where I made a call, like when I was at Cold Stone Creamery, my first call ever was a woman in Cleveland, and she wound up buying 2 franchises from me 18 months later.
In Georgia? I'm just curious. Did she open? Oh, I thought she might have.
Everything happens.
Not Georgia, not that time.
Right.
Yeah, I think the only time it's really,
I think the lead was never dead. You know, that's my,
for us,
just my.
a lead is dead if, you know, if we've got a if we've got someone who is very polarizing on the phone. And again, we always try to be diplomatic because we look at it from the standpoint of, hey, they're interested in us as a business partner, but they also may be a consumer, right? So we always try to be very just polite and thankful for their interest in our brand, but sometimes it's not a good fit. And so if we find out that that's kind of the case, then we will probably unsubscribe them from any future campaigns. But you know, if their role is different, right? They may be the investor, but maybe not the operator. The deal could kind of work. So you know, you hate to kill a lead, right? That could turn into something.
All right, so I'm going to actually answer the question a little bit more directly. I'm a believer in sending an email campaign, like Tim said, and you know, 7 to 10 emails in a 20-day or 30-day time frame. You know, I like to send one email, as I said, right after I'd met them. You know, 2 days later, I'll send another email, and so on. I will intersperse a couple of text messages there, and I'm going to make 7 phone calls. If I don't reach them in 7 phone calls and they stay throughout that trip, the last email in the campaign says, hey, we haven't been able to get together. You know, it may not be of interest. This might not be the right time for you now, but we're always happy to speak with you in the future. So please reach out when the time might be better. And just as Tim said, you know, I'll follow up with that person whenever there's another event in the region, or if I have a resale that comes up in the marketplace or something like that. And as Trey said, you know, if somebody tells me something that I absolutely know is not a fit with our vision or our culture, then I'm going to mark them as a dead lead, and I'm going to make sure that they're unsubscribed and that I don't reach out to them again, you know, because there's sometimes that happens and you just don't want those people in your brand, and you need to know that. So, and the next guy who's doing this job and following up needs to know that.
Awesome. That is all the time that we have for questions today. Did want to leave everyone with some helpful information on marketing tools for exhibitors. Today's sponsor, MFV, has created some great online toolkits that are available on their websites. We are going to drop that in the chat box right now. And then finally, if you're planning on attending the IFE June 2nd through the 4th in New York at the Javits Center, we will be continuing this conversation on best practices for selling on site, and then following up with leads after the show. So that will be on June 1st from 2 to 3. So if you are exhibiting as a franchisor, you hopefully will be able to attend that during the setup day. So with that, thank you, Ron, Tim, Trey. Looking forward to seeing you all soon at a trade show, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Glad to see you.
The opportunity. Thank you.